Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's Saturday, March 26th, 2017. The Elite Eight has finished in the men's college basketball tournament. We're going to look at the rigging within those four games and then talk about what we can expect with the Final Four and the men's championship. If you missed my preview video for the tournament before it began, I talked about why I expected representation from the Carolinas in the Final Four and also from at least one Jesuit school, which we have with Gonzaga. I just made a prediction for the Elite Eight, and I said I expected both North Carolina and South Carolina to make it as a tribute to Donald Trump. Donald Trump won big in the primaries in the Carolinas. Donald Trump is a Jesuit. Last year, the men's college basketball tournament was synced with the Pope's departure from the United States of America on September 27, 2015, the Jesuit order's birthday. Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope. In case you're new to my work, I've exposed for more than 3 years how sports are rigged, both collegiate and professional, and how they're synced up with what's going on in the news popular culture. Might sound crazy, but it is the truth. And we're going to prove that again by breaking down these four games that were just played in the Elite Eight and looking at the remaining teams. So we'll begin with Xavier Gonzaga. This game was played on the 84th day of the year, March 25th, between the two remaining Jesuit schools. And just real quick, in Gematria, Jesuit equals 84. So does the Catholic Church. The Jesuits, the Masonic order within the Catholic Church, 84th day of the year. Gonzaga, the Jesuit school, defeats Xavier, the Jesuit school, by a very appropriate score. In case you're new here, I will link this calculator down in the description. Makes this Gematria calculating very easy. Xavier has Gematria of 83 as well as 79. This year's the 79th men's tournament. Began in 1939, won by the Oregon Webfoots. Anyway, Xavier goes down in the Elite Eight, the furthest they've made it, with 83 points. Losing to the other Jesuit school. Also, Jesuit has Gematria of 42, like Freemason. It's the Masonic order within the Catholic Church. When you write out 42 as a word, it sums to 142, and these two Jesuit schools combine for 142 points. As this game was being played on the 84th day of the year, there was supposedly a shooting in Las Vegas that shut down the Strip. Remember, this is the 84th day of the year. The same time the game was starting, this news broke. Las Vegas Strip equals 84. Think about sports, gambling, in the book 1984. If you've never read that book, it's about this nation we live in. It's about all it took to rule over the people was beer, gambling, and sports. And it's about a people who live under a military dictatorship. Anyway, the shooting in Las Vegas was on a bus. After the game was played, there was a shooting in Cincinnati, where Xavier's from, at a nightclub. Nightclub equals 42, like bus, like Jesuit, like Freemason. They said a man was killed at the nightclub named Spikes. Spikes has Gematria of 79 and 83, just like Xavier. He was killed in Cincinnati, where Xavier's from. At least that's what we're told in the story. Worst mass shooting of 2017. In truth, they were just both tributes to rigged sports, rigged news, Freemasons running the show. This stuff goes on every year. Go back to my 2015 work. There was a bogus plane crash story in the news. Andreas Lubitz, Germanwings. They said where he crashed in those mountains, it was known for a people known as Blue Devils. When the news reported that, and with the college tournament underway, I put out a video saying, watch, the Duke Blue Devils are going to win this championship. And they went on to win in 2015. Last year, there was the bogus train wreck the day before the championship game. Everything coded in that train wreck, and it was just outside of Philadelphia, like Villanova. Everything in that train wreck synced up with the basketball tournament, and then the team from right there went on to win the championship. You might also recall that last year during the tournament, March 22nd, there was the Belgium attack, And they said Dikembe Mutombo survived the attack. The basketball player was there. They said a man who played professionally in Europe and used to play for a U.S. college team survived the attack, got his leg injured. Remember the basketball players that testified about the Belgium false flag on March 22nd? Anyway, every year you pay attention, there's these bogus news stories, and they're truly synced up with the sports. It's going to happen next year, and it's going to happen the year after that, and the year after, because they do this every single year. So, next game, Oregon versus the Jayhawks. Oregon was the 3 seed, Jayhawks were the 1 seed. By the way, in the Gonzaga-Xavier, Gonzaga was the 1 seed, Xavier was the 11. Gonzaga was the favorite. Yesterday's game at halftime, the score was 44-33 going into halftime, but just before it was 44, it was 41. An Oregon player shot a really deep bank three-pointer. Head on, something you almost never see. That made the score 77 total points, and Oregon has not been to the Final Four since 1939 when they won the championship. I put out a video before the tournament began on Oregon, that 1939 season. Anyway, they kept saying on ESPN that it's been 77 years since Oregon was in the Final Four. I saw him reporting this last night and today. Really, it's been 78 years, but they're saying 77 for a reason. With regards to Oregon and basketball, the Portland Trail Blazers only won the NBA championship one time in the 77 season. It was the end of the 76-77 season. The Blazers beat the 76ers in the 76-77 season. Anyway, 44-33. It went from 41-33, 74 points, to 44-33, 77 points, and that put a big grin on my face because the winning score last year was 74-77, Villanova defeating North Carolina. Also, Oregon is the 33rd state, the only state with a simple English gematria of 74. And this is something I've talked about since 2013. Oregon sums to 74. It's the 33rd state, like Jesus, like cross, like Messiah, like gospel, the story of Jesus, parables, the spiritual lessons from Jesus' stories. Anyway, think about Jesus on the cross at age 33. Oregon, the only state with an ordinal gematria of 74, the 33rd state. Also, Christ equals 77. Last year, the final score was 77-74. It was a tribute to the Jesuit order. Jesuit stands for Society of Jesus. Jesus Christ. Notice Society of Jesus also sums to 79, and here we are in the 79th men's tournament. Heavy Catholic representation. From the Pope leaving on the Jesuit order's birthday to Villanova, the Catholic school winning last year was 191 days. Just with regards to Catholic equals 71, just like Gonzaga. This year, the tournament was announced the tournament bracket was announced March 12th, the 71st day of the year. So halftime, this game, Ducks 44-33, Oregon's the 33rd state. Oregon won the first college championship with a score of 46-33, beating the Ohio State Buckeyes. Oregon was called the Webfoots then, 33 like the 33rd state. They won in 39. Now the mascot's a duck. Isn't that interesting? But the Webfoots won 33-46. That's a sum of 79 points. We're in the 79th tournament. Just so you know, the word champion also has gematria of 79. Champion also has gematria of 137, which is the 33rd prime number. I didn't expect Oregon to win this tournament before it began, and I haven't done enough research. I haven't been watching the games. I think there's narratives for other teams, but I'm going to show you something really interesting about Oregon and why they actually could win this year. So, I'm just going to lay out the full picture for you. So the final score, Oregon advancing to the Final Four for the first time since 1939. They did it 74-60, right? 74, Oregon, the only state, 1 out of 50, that sums to 74 with ordinal gematria. And again, very special number to this nation. Holiday 74, Independence Day 74, gematria, what we're talking about, 74, just like English, just like alphabetic order. Special number. But think about how only 1 out of 50 states sums to 74. So anyway, this year, the championship date from April 3rd to the coach of Oregon's upcoming birthday is 74 days. I find that interesting. Oregon won 74-60. Kansas, 33 points in the first half. Tribute that Oregon was going to win the game. Webfoot's, again, like we just talked about, first team to win the men's tournament in 1939. That season was the 38-39 season, and just so you caught it, Oregon also has the gematria of 38. Their coach, currently 58 years old, born in 58. The plural of Ducks, what the team is called, equals 58, special number. And let's also notice that Ducks is 77 in reverse ordinal. 77 in reverse ordinal. And they keep saying 77 years since they last win, even though it's really been 78. This season began in 2016. It had been 77 years then, so that's the way you could make the argument. We're going to talk about the parallel between Oregon and South Carolina through 77 and 93. But anyway, this coach, 58 years old, born in 58, Ducks equals 58. He's the right age. From the championship to his birthday is 74 days, which is really interesting. Also interesting, I grew up in Oregon, so I was thinking about Oregon, the Oregon Trail with them playing Kansas. You know, the Oregon Trail began right on the Kansas-Missouri border. Look at Oregon Trail in gematria, 134, and the score was 74-60, 134 points. So a tribute to the Oregon Trail, it very well might be. Also interesting, Phil Knight. Just so you know, Knight equals 33 like Webfoot's. They say Knight went to Cleveland High School in Portland, Oregon. He's from Oregon, the 33rd state. But Knight is who gave all this money to make Oregon such a powerful sports program. He is the head of Nike. Notice Knight also equals 93 in reverse ordinal. Oregon was established on a date with 93 numerology. We were talking about how Oregon has the connections to Jesus. Oregon established on a date with 93 numerology. God's sun equals 93. They say the sun's 93 million miles away. Crucifix also equals 93. Like Jesus on the cross. Anyway, Phil Knight, head of Nike, the man who made Oregon so powerful, he's 79 years old, and it's the 79th men's tournament. Interesting. And you know what? As I'm talking about this out loud, I just put out videos on how this tournament could be a big tribute to Michael Jordan. Let me make sure this just popped into my head. I want to check this out in real time. Interesting that Oregon and North Carolina are playing each other. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was the matchup. North Carolina, where Jordan went. North Carolina, Nike, you know, I don't need to explain it. Jordan brand. It makes sense that North Carolina is facing Oregon in this matchup. My initial thought was that North Carolina would make it to the championship again this year before I did any other research. It would make sense for North Carolina to advance over Oregon, Oregon essentially getting martyred in the ritual. So before these games were played, I again wrote today why I expected North Carolina and South Carolina to win the 7-1 seed. We were just talking about March Madness, 71 Catholic. That's also the 1-7 seed. Here we are in 2017. Donald Trump, who became the president this year, who won big in the Carolinas in the primary. Both Carolinas in the Final Four. South Carolina for the first time. North Carolina for the 20th time, an NCAA record. Anyway, South Carolina and Oregon are the only teams in this year's tournament that have won games with 93 points. This is before the Final Four. We'll see if we get some 93 in the Final Four. But through all of the games through the Elite Eight, only 2 games have finished with scores of 93. South Carolina won with 93. This was their head coach's 93rd win with the team. And the Ducks in the first round also won with 93. Notice that the Gamecocks beat Marquette and the Ducks beat Iona. Marquette and Iona both equal 39, the reflection of 93. And again, Oregon hasn't won since 39. Also, we'll talk about the 77 connection between the Ducks and the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks ended up winning with 77 today. But this was, again, what I was writing about. 93, because the championship this year is on the 93rd day of the year, April 3rd. North Carolina won the championship in 93. Special number related to Donald Trump and more. 93 is the number for time, the sun, 93 million miles away. To the occult, Saturn is the keeper of time. Saturn equals 93. In the Kabbalah cipher, the word for time equals 93. And again, if you missed my work on Michael Jordan just turned 54 years old. The word sun equals 54. He was a big part of Nike. Nike's symbol is a swoosh of Saturn. And Nike equals 39, Saturn 93, the reflection. So anyway, Kentucky, North Carolina. At halftime, Kentucky was down 33-38. This was Kentucky's 33rd Elite Eight appearance, an NCAA record. 33 points at halftime, trailing North Carolina 38-33. That's a sum of 71 points. March Madness. UNC also in the lead with 38. UNC 38. After halftime, there was a really awesome tribute. If you go back and watch my tournament work from 2016, before the tournament began, I said why I expected North Carolina in the championship, and I showed how much of the tournament was structured around number 44 for North Carolina in their games. And today, against Kentucky, number 44 had a very awesome scripted play. He made the rare 4-point play in basketball, making a three-pointer and getting fouled and making the extra free throw. The score was 40-39. North Carolina was up a point when Justin Jackson, number 44, made a three-pointer while getting fouled. That made the score 43-39. Remember, Tar Heels has Gematria 43. The championship's 4/3. He then made the free throw, bringing it to 44 points. Everybody who's following my blog has been documenting how each tournament game, this man scores the 44th point of the game, number 44. And I was documenting this last year, him scoring the 44th point of games. So look at this. It was 40 points when he made the three, starting the 4-point play. Justin Jackson equals 40. The score was 40-39 when he hit the big three, then the and one, bringing it to 44 points. This was all part of a ritual advancing to the final four. You know, the 4-point play, taking it to 44 before the final four. He just turned 22 years old the day before the game, yesterday, on the 84th day of the year. And 79 is the 22nd prime. He's 22 years old. What I forgot to put up there is that's the basketball number. Basketball, 22. He played today on the 85th day of the year, his first day of being 22, and on the hardwood. So the final score of the North Carolina game was 73-75, and if you watch my preview work, I talked about this exact sum of points, 148. I showed how the Tar Heels and Trump were aligned, and I showed how North Carolina and Donald J. Trump, his author name that he uses on his books, both have Gematria of 148. Then lo and behold, North Carolina wins a game summing to 148. UK loses with 73, relevant number to Carolina. Both Carolinas in the Final Four. As I mentioned before, Roy Williams' 67th birthday is 121 days after the championship. And what's interesting about that is Revelation has Gematria of 67 and 121. Donald Trump, highly connected to Revelation. Holy Bible equals 45. The Holy Bible ends with Revelation, where the trumpets or the trumpets are the warning signs, the trumpets ticket. He's currently 66. Revelation, the 66th book of the Bible. Revelation, always relevant in the scripting because it has to do with prophecy, and we're talking about rig sports and people born into the rigging, people born into these Masonic families, from the athletes to the coaches to the commentators. So the Gamecocks, they won with 77. I saw this upset coming. The 7 seed Gamecocks with the 77 Gematria go on to win with 77 points. Again, we talked about Jesus, the cross, Christ, crucifix. Christ equals 77, crucifix 93, Oregon and South Carolina, the only teams to win with 93 points. Gamecocks and Ducks have the relationship. Something tells me we're going to see South Carolina lose and Oregon lose, and we'll have a Gonzaga versus North Carolina finals. That's what I'm expecting. Could be wrong. Perhaps we'll see South Carolina and Oregon, the only teams with the 93-point tributes in the championship on the 93rd day of the year. But I have a feeling the symbolism is them getting knocked off in the Final Four. Making it to the Final Four is a great accomplishment in itself. Again, Oregon advanced with 74, Gamecocks was 77, Jesus and Christ. Last year, the final score was 74-77, tribute to the Catholic Church, the Pope. Has a lot to do with Christianity. Turns out in Gematria, there's even an overlap between Christ and basketball. And today, March 26th, the final games of the Elite Eight, the 85th day of the year. Frank Martin, head coach of South Carolina, youngest coach still in the field, just turned 51, March 23rd. So we got the 7-1 seed. Again, Catholic equals 71, Gonzaga 71. Something tells me that, that's all set up for Gonzaga. The smaller division school playing the lesser seed. Like I said before the tournament began, if there was ever a year for Gonzaga to make it to the championship, a lot lined up this year. I also saw that stat right after the Super Bowl. They put it up on the screen for ESPN with Gonzaga. They showed that they were 28-3 at something. It was days after the Super Bowl where the Patriots had just come back from 28-3. The scripted finish where I said weeks before the Super Bowl, it was all about number 25 and why the Patriots in the AFC would win the Super Bowl, earning the AFC's 25th Super Bowl. Then the 25-point comeback by the numbers. Trump also equals 25. Trump very connected to the Super Bowl, as I talked about before it was played. Oregon and North Carolina. I just see that major alignment with Jordan and North Carolina. If Oregon snuck in there somehow, you could say, well, I guess it was the Nike Jordan brand thing. It's possible. It's possible. Especially with the championship being 74 days from the Oregon coach's birthday. But the thing to realize, and what I have realized from doing this for a number of years now and tracking things and looking at things like this, sometimes you see these perfect alignments and it doesn't happen. And you ask yourself, well, why not? I mean, everything lined up so perfect. How could it have not gone that way? Well, you realize the perfect alignment was all part of the ritual. Like, for example, Oregon's coach, from the championship to his birthday, 74 days, this big number for Oregon. If Oregon's not there playing in it, you know what? Oregon was still part of the narrative. They were Final Four. That's who North Carolina went over. All part of the ritual. And this is, this is the furthest Oregon has gone to in the tournament since 1939. So big accomplishment already for that coach. I do expect Gonzaga, North Carolina. These teams have met before. Also Truth Seeker. If you go back, I wish I could remember. I think Donald Trump, when he won the primary, because there were a lot of Republicans, I think Donald Trump got 52.3% of the vote in South Carolina, because I was talking about how it synced up with their date, May 23rd. of establishment South Carolina. Remember, Donald Trump has gotten the number 523 coded next to him a million times. And we've recently learned about satanic gematria. And even in satanic gematria, Donald Trump's 523. Again, in case you're new here, I've been talking about Donald Trump at 523 for going on 2 years. The South Carolina win was one of the examples that came along the way. Go back and look up the stats. I'm pretty sure it was 52.3% of the vote he got there. And that was a lot because there were so many different people in the field. But South Carolina has that establishment date relevant to Trump. Again, this tournament has a lot to do with Donald Trump, the Jesuit president. Really, it has more to do with the Jesuits. Trump's just a puppet in the ongoing centuries-on show, this doing history by the numbers, the Catholic Church, this goes way back. This is way bigger than the men's tournament. Oregon, established on Valentine's Day, date with 93 numerology, not by coincidence. The championships on the 93rd day of the year this year, final 93. I'm just reminding, it is possible that South Carolina and Oregon could meet in the championship. Crucifix 93, God's Son 93, Saturn 93, the Sun 93 million miles away. Is the sun in the sky Jesus Christ? Is Jesus an allegory for the sun? I think we covered it all, Truth Seeker. Final score last year, the championship, 77-74. I can show you something cool about that we haven't talked about yet. Notice that Villanova equals 136. Jesus Christ equals 151. 77 plus 74. Notice Jesus Christ also has the connection to 74. But 151 is the 36th prime. And Villanova got the win. By the matching sum. Villanova had last won in 1985, then won 31 years later, 2016. Again, basketball also has that 31 connection. The last 2 times North Carolina and Gonzaga have played, notice North Carolina lost in 2006 in a game in Madison Square Garden. The date of this game was November 22nd, 2006. I remember this game better than any college basketball game because I got to watch Derek Ravio for Gonzaga torch North Carolina in the first half. Gonzaga had 40 points and Derek Ravio had most of them. Derek Ravio is a couple years younger than me. I got to grow up playing basketball with him. His father played professionally for the Lakers for a short period of time. He now plays professionally in Germany. But anyway, I got to grow up with this kid, play basketball with him. He's the best basketball player I've ever got to see with my own eyes, grow up, play around. And it was fun watching him torch North Carolina in Madison Square Garden. I remember that game like it was yesterday. But anyway, notice they beat North Carolina, who had 74. Then the last time they played each other, UNC won in the tournament, and Gonzaga lost with 77. Pay attention, these numbers get used a lot. So anyway, the dates of these games, November 22nd, 2006, date with 59 and 39 numerology, just like the date of the tournament game, 59 and 39. And what's interesting is 59 is the 17th prime. Here we are in 2017. $39, the reflection of 93. Interesting how that worked out. Gonzaga won one, North Carolina won the other. So I'll do more homework during the week, but here we are. We got a week till the Final Four and championship, so I thought I'd give you some information to marinate on. If anybody else caught this, I got to see the end of this game. They took a timeout at 3-2-2. We know how significant this number is to Freemasonry. 223, very special number to Freemasonry, the reflection of that number. When they took the timeout, they went to the stands, and I didn't take this picture fast enough, but when they went to this guy, they had the camera on him, and he goes like this towards the camera. And then when he started to pull it away, that's when I took the picture. He was pulling his arms apart. But I thought it was so interesting that he made an X when the camera went to him with 322, because that's the number of skull and bones. Skull and bones of the Masonic order. Skull and a crossbones, but they call themselves skull and bones. Interesting that skull and bones is 223 like Masonic. Who's this guy? He has the USA ball cap on. Show you something about USA and skull and bones. USA equals 41, the 13th prime. Skull and bones equals 41. George H.W. Bush was a member of Skull and Bones, the 41st president. If you write out 41, it sums to 118. If you write out George Herbert Walker Bush, it sums to 118. George Herbert Walker Bush did the coin toss before Super Bowl 51, which was won by the Patriots. Patriots has Gematria of 118 and 98. Check that out. Now watch Tom Brady. Isn't that something else? Isn't that something else? And notice New England Patriots also comes back to 98. Next year is the 98th season of the NFL. Could we see Eli Manning versus Tom Brady Part 3? Minnesota's hosting Super Bowl 52. And Tom Brady has a chance to win number 6. So anyway, you learn this language of Gematria, you'll see through a lot of things, and just stuff like this, you'll start to go, oh, wait, maybe that wasn't arbitrary. This man making an X with his arms when the camera goes to him with 322 on the clock. Also, NBA, this Devin Booker at age 20 scored 70 points the other night. This was exactly 70 days before the start of the NBA Finals. And something tells me this was a tribute to Donald Trump, who became president at age 70. If you write out 70, it sums to 110 like president. 110. Also 79 like the men's tournament we're in. But president has the Gematria of 110. Donald Trump becomes president at age 70. From the date he did it to his upcoming birthday is 221 days. From the day Donald Trump turned 70 to the day he became president on Inauguration Day was 221 days. That's the number for the Bavarian Illuminati, which is a real thing, established May 1st, 1776, a date with 99 numerology by 13 families. So anyway, Devin Booker scoring 70 and playing for the Arizona team. Remember, Trump began his campaign for president in Arizona. Arizona also has the Gematria of 84 like Jesuit. Devin Booker has Gematria of 120 like Illuminati with regards to the Bavarian Illuminati. The Celtics got their 47th win in that game, and the word president equals 47. The last president to be assassinated from Massachusetts, the Celtics. Been showing the overlap between Kennedy and Trump. Something going on there. 70 points also has that Gematria like Donald J. Trump. So there it is, Truth Seeker. Elite 8, Final 4, scripted sports, by the numbers, as always. And the last thing I'll say is, again, the games are scripted, but the talent's still real. These guys have to be that amazing. And like I said, Derek Ravio, that's someone I got to grow up playing basketball with. And all that kid did was, live, eat, breathe basketball. That kid walked to classes dribbling 2 basketballs. Seriously. And you know what? I mean, if you grew up during my era, you probably remember White Chocolate for the Sacramento Kings. Derek Ravio had better handles than White Chocolate. Man, he used to just embarrass people. And he could make balls all day on command. You know what? For all of you who ask, how do they make sure their shots go in? How do they make sure these games are to the point? Let me remind you something. You might have heard of this team, the Harlem Globetrotters. Harlem Globetrotters. They don't miss their shots. You ever seen the Harlem Globetrotters play? They don't miss. And you know what? They say the Harlem Globetrotters aren't as good as the players in the NBA and the best players in college. They go on to be the best players in the NBA. The Harlem Globetrotters theme song, the whistling, I wish I could Whistle. But you know the song. Think about the Harlem Globetrotters. That whistling. Their song Sweet Georgia Brown. 89, just like Harlem Globetrotters. Go back and see my work on the Harlem Globetrotter who dropped dead at age 89. Don't think it was a coincidence the day he died. It was murder by numbers. But anyway, Harlem Globetrotters can make their shots all day. They can even make them from half court all day. If you've ever seen the Globetrotters, that's what they do. So we need to ask ourselves, are some people this good at putting the ball in the hoop, or has technology been around for a long time that can ensure shots go in or stay out? You know, and is it people in high places like Skull and Bones, like going to the crowd and getting a random Skull and Bones tribute? Are there certain people in this world who are aware of this technology that others are not? Based on what I've seen and how all these games are point tight over the years, makes me think that there really is some sort of technology being used in these games, and possibly, you know, even with things like the Harlem Globetrotters. How else do those guys make all their shots? If you go back and read about the Harlem Globetrotters, who started them? A Jewish man, you know? Again, Jewish. 74. Gematria, Jewish practice. Freemasonry, based in Jewish history, Masonic. The United States of America, established by Freemasons, Jewish bankers. Until next time, True Seeker.